Uh, my name is Dr. Kim Paffenroth. I teach religious studies over at Iona College, which is just north of New York City. I've been there since 2001. A little closer? All right. Good?
There you go.
How's that? In 2006, I got interested in the interface or the connection or the influence of how pop culture expresses philosophical and religious ideas, how it does it for a much wider and much different audience than we as academics are used to writing for. So I wrote a book about the Romero films and his social criticism and the kind of ethical and even metaphysical message that he wants to get out about human nature and how he looks at the world. That was called Gospel of the Living Dead. It was way more successful than any of the other theology books I'd written. People really like zombies, they like them, and they're much more interested in them. So I really felt that that was a good way of me expressing myself in a way that would reach just a much wider audience than me talking to other professors, which was a frustration for me. I felt like I was writing these books, and the only other people who would ever read them would be a couple hundred other professors. So it's been really exciting for me in that way. While I was working on that book, I got the crazy idea that I could try writing zombie fiction. Because again, I was talking about what the zombies mean in Romero's work, and I thought, well, let's see if I can make them mean what I want them to mean. I can use them for the symbols and the ideas that I want to get across in story form. I had no idea if it would be successful, but the first one, Dying to Live, was pretty successful by small press standards, and it's gone on to now be three novels in a row. I don't call them a trilogy, but a series of novels building on those ideas and again, taking it in a direction of what I'm interested in using the zombies for. So I'm actually reading from the most recent. If you can't stand smart zombies, that'd be another opportunity for you to leave, because that was a direction I went in with the second book. As I was telling somebody at the table, I think whatever your take, whatever your spin on zombies, you got to do something different with them after a certain point. You know, I mean, the idea that there's a shambling horde outside and we're all barricaded in here, that's kind of your standard zombie story. It's effective, it's scary, it's a good trope, but it's been done dozens and hundreds of times. So I think everybody now, however they're taking it, whether they're focusing on the dynamics between the survivors, whether they're thinking about fast zombies or smart zombies, or how this all happened, I mean, they're going to have to go into some kind of spin of looking at this in a different way. And smart zombies was the way that I took it after a certain point. I'd always found Bub in Day of the Dead and then Big Daddy in Land of the Dead. I found those really exciting and interesting directions to go. I'm going to read you kind of the climactic chapter here. To set it up, we have the zombie that we're talking about here. She's named Lucy. She's been imprisoned in kind of a work gang camp that the one city of survivors uses the zombies to perform simple tasks. They especially use them in this kind of savage way to attack other zombies. So they're these sort of semi-tame zombies that are being used as a zombie army against wild, feral zombies to try to keep them at bay, to keep the city safe. So Lucy's been in prison there for some time. Again, these are smart zombies, or at least smarter. They have relearned certain skills in certain parts, and they re-remembered certain parts of their past. And at some point they had to communicate, so they have to talk to one another. All right, so you're going to see that too. The zombies in the camp are at this moment leading an uprising to try to break out of the camp and kill the human guards. So that's where we're at with this particular passage. Lucy still stood in the doorway when the crowd of dead men started toward the gate, sending up an inarticulate chant of grunts and hoots as they advanced. Funny how they still refused to speak in front of the live humans. Was it just habit, or did they want to keep something secret, even up to their own ends. No telling the people, living or dead. The dead men huddled behind several large wooden shields, 4 or 5 of them behind each shield, occasionally popping out from behind them to throw rocks at the tower. It seemed a precaution so the guards couldn't really aim at them, but Lucy didn't know how effective the tactic was going to be. She watched the guards moving around, one of them getting behind the big fixed machine gun. Lucy could only see 2 of them, now that the others had left, but it still seemed enough to stop this assault. She thought he could reduce the shields to sticks with that, but he waited. Probably wanted them to get closer. Christine joined Lucy at the door. "Dumbasses," she said. "What the hell is that going to do? And what are they going to do about the gate? Kick at it while they're all getting shot to pieces?" "Yeah," Lucy said. "We have to help them. You found a string for that thing?" "Carol, get over here," Christine said toward the back of their house. Carol came up with one of the bombs. She was no longer wearing her striped shirt, but had pulled on a ragged green sweatshirt with a faded picture of a horse embroidered on the front. She held out 2 other shirts to Lucy and Christine. "Why?" Lucy said as she started unbuttoning the uniform. "I figure if we get out, the old shirt won't be much help," Christine said as she undid her own shirt. "They'll probably shoot us anyway, but we won't stick out so much as the dead people who killed guards and broke out. Probably won't work. Besides, I always hated those things." Lucy took a black sweater from Carol and pulled it on. "No, it's a good idea," she said. Lucy took hold of the explosive. It still made her uneasy, even just the way it felt. Leave it to live humans to transform things as joyous and fulfilling as killing into such grotesque ordeals. The first burst of machine gun fire made Lucy jump. It was immediately followed by another. Outside, just as predicted, one of the wooden shields had been split in 2. That initial flurry of metal had torn the head off of one of the dead men as well. 4 others were trying now to make for cover, but they fell one by one, with their heads smashed open by rifle fire or completely atomized by the larger machine gun. "You gonna make it?" Christine asked. "I can try." Lucy tilted her head and smiled at the other woman. "No, I don't think you'd have much of a chance. I'll do it if I can. Throw some bottles at them or something, but don't get shot. You too." Tucking the bomb under her arm, Lucy waited a moment. She didn't jump as much when the machine gun fired again, and she took that as her signal to go. The guard was tearing up another of the wooden shields as Lucy tottered out and made her way toward the fence. She angled to the right, then turned a little and ran faster to the left, trying to make it a bit harder for them to cut her in 2 with their weapons. As she reached the fence, she slid on her side and crammed the package under the barrier, right at the base of the guard tower. Scrambling to her feet, she trotted back, trailing the string behind her. She had reached the end of the cord when a spray of bullets splashed in the puddle next to her. Lucy turned and slipped, falling to the side as a bullet tore into the side of her chest. Fuck. If the string had come undone, then she'd just be scrambling around there in the mud until a bullet found her head and ended it. At least it wouldn't take long, and at least she wouldn't have to see her friends killed or worry anymore about Truman. The wound in her chest hurt more than she expected, a burning she didn't think she could feel anymore. She let out a howl of hatred and blame as she twisted on the ground and yanked the string. The explosion was so loud it made Lucy wonder if she'd be able to hear again. That'd suck worse than being all the way dead. Not knowing what people were saying, not being able to understand them or have warning of danger, not being able to play or hear music. All this raced through her mind as she heard a muffled groaning sound and screams followed by the guard tower crashing right next to her. Bits of debris hitting her face, dust and dirt stinging her eye. Lucy got up slowly. Nothing felt broken as she brushed herself off. The wreckage of the tower spread out next to her. Looking back, she saw the fence was torn open too. Near her, an arm stuck out of the shattered wooden pieces of the tower, and a groaning now came from that direction. Farther away, she saw another limb in the rubble, but that one stayed silent and still. Lucy walked over and cleared the pieces off the nearest body. One of the guards, face down, moving a little. at her mercy. She nudged him with her foot as she growled. This didn't feel like running around with a bomb. This felt right. He tried to move his hand toward the automatic on his belt, causing Lucy to pounce on him. She bit into his wrist, the blood so hot and sweet on her lips, the scream so high and helpless, all of it perfect and intoxicating to her. She ground her teeth down, feeling the bones crack, and wrenched her head side to side to rend his arm into bloody shreds and jagged bits of bone. Letting go of his wrist, Lucy wriggled up to lie on top of him. He turned his head a bit so she could see his one terror-stricken, tear-filled eye and his mud-smeared face. She bent lower. He whimpered and kicked his legs but couldn't move. Don't fucking point a gun at me, she shrieked, and her bloody lips were so close to his face that a pink spray hit his cheek and eye. You fucking understand me? You'll never hurt me or my friends, ever. I'm sorry, he cried, before falling into uncontrollable, inarticulate sobs. Sorry? He thought that was supposed to do something? That was supposed to make up for something? But the funny thing was, Lucy felt it did make this whole exchange different, somehow. She licked her lips and savored the taste of blood a little more, but knew all the thrill and joy of it had gone for the moment. Too bad, but she knew it was true. Now she had to proceed more delicately and deliberately. Sorry, she hissed. You don't want to tell me what a great ass I have? You don't want to see my tit nice and up close now? What's wrong, baby? She bent closer and drew out the last word deliciously. The guard started squirming so frantically at that, she thought he'd wriggle out from under her or pass out from breathing so fast and shallow. No, he squealed. That was Bob. Not me. Shit. Just like them to lie, of course. It was second nature to them, even when their lives weren't at stake. And thinking she had a lying little lecherous coward right next to her almost made Lucy tear the back of his neck open with her teeth. Oh, the thrashing he'd make as she tore through the muscles and into the vertebrae. He'd buck under her like they were fucking, shudder and howl at the moment when it was finished. Oh God, that'd feel so damn good. Gripping the back of his head, pressing his face into the dirt, a part of Lucy wanted it so much it nearly overwhelmed her. But as he cried and quivered under her, the flame of that desire gradually subsided. She wasn't even sure this was the one who tormented her or not. Damn. She should have been more observant, but mostly she tried to avoid looking at them. The living usually look pretty much alike anyway. Even if it were this one, what was it she felt needed to be done right now? She paused and considered again how this should go. Lucy leaned closer. No? Not you? No, he sniffled, paused. Hey, wait. You can talk? How? I don't know, she said. I learned. Twice, I guess. Hard work, too, the second time. Lucy took her attention from him as she heard the other dead getting closer. Ben was closest, with a large crowd behind and all around, inching toward Lucy and the guard. He twisted, saw them, and started screaming and wriggling under her again. No, he screamed, please, no. You can talk. You can understand. You're not like them. Save me. Shh, Lucy said, reaching around to get the automatic out of its holster. They understand too, don't worry. Lucy had watched Will servicing weapons many times, disassembling them, cleaning them. He'd noticed her watching and shown her the basic workings. He was better about sharing information like that than Rachel was, and Lucy again felt herself hoping, almost in spite of herself, that they were all right too. Lucy racked the slide on the automatic and made sure the safety was off, and lifted the barrel. We need a minute here, Lucy said. You all owe me that.